Tim Heaphy, the first time I had the pleasure of getting to talk to you after the Select Committee's work finished, I think I asked you what you would ask Mark Meadows. I have the same question today, but I'll add that now that we have such a mountain of evidence, in large part to the investigative work you and your colleagues on the 1-6 Select Committee did, is there any doubt in your mind that Mark Meadows is the one man who stood between Trump's enthusiasm for, quote, hanging Mike Pence and the legal concerns that were articulated in the sworn testimony by Cassidy Hutchinson and Pat Cipollone and others?
No doubt at all, Nicole. Look, he's at the center of everything. He is at the president's right hand throughout all of the relevant events, all of the multi-prongs of the plot that the Select Committee articulated. Mark Meadows was right there. He was right there on January 6th, but he was right there in efforts to potentially change personnel at Justice. As your reporting just indicated, he went to Georgia before the certification after the election. He's involved in contact with members of Congress. He is such a vital player in all of this that if he's cooperating, and hard to say what he said in the grand jury, but if he's truthfully cooperating, it's a pretty significant step for the special counsel, a step beyond the Select Committee was able to take.
Now, I know we don't have a lot of visibility into what the circumstances are around his testimony before a grand jury, but the committee made clear, and Cassidy Hutchinson in that final comment talking about him seeking a pardon, Mark Meadows made clear that Mark Meadows thought Mark Meadows may have had criminal exposure, and that's why Mark Meadows, quote, sought a pardon. What are the scenarios for him cooperating now with Jack Smith's criminal probes?
Look, it's very common in a conspiracy investigation, and that's what this is. The special counsel is looking at a concerted action to disrupt the joint session. Some co-conspirators who have exposure have a strong incentive to cooperate with the government and reduce that exposure. So I don't know if there's been some sort of deal made between Meadows through counsel and Jack Smith and his team. It's essentially not being charged or charged without a specific sentencing request in exchange for cooperation. That may be what's going on here. It may be that he's testifying in the hope that he isn't somehow implicated or indicted. My guess is there were extensive discussions between Meadows' counsel and the special counsel that sort of articulated the terms of his testimony, the expectations on both sides before he went in there and gave sworn testimony.
Tim, we know Kash Patel has been given some limited immunity in the documents probe. We know that that is a tool that this special counsel, Jack Smith, has used. Is it possible that Meadows' lawyer, George Terwilliger, was waiting for Georgia or the federal investigations to mature to a point where he understood his client's criminal exposure and waited to strike a deal? I mean, Mike Schmidt, who has one of the bylines on the story, talked about how this is one of the last people in this innermost circle that we're hearing about going before. I mean, he's coming after we heard about Mike Pence going before the grand jury.
Yeah, no question. Any good lawyer would want to have a clear sense from the government as to the status of his or her client before facilitating cooperation. So again, I'm sure there are extensive discussions. Mark Meadows has exposure. There's no question that his actions before and on January 6th give rise to participation in a conspiracy. Given that creates leverage for the special counsel to use that exposure as a means to get Mr. Meadows to cooperate. Now, it's a business transaction. Special counsel has to give up something to get that, and that is likely either immunity, like Mr. Patel has gotten, or maybe others, or, again, the promise of conveying to the judge cooperation that would bear upon sentencing. We don't know what the terms are. We do know, though, again, Nicole, we keep saying it, he was right there at the center of the action, in the room where it happened, for multiple events, and that's why this is so potentially significant.
Let me show you, I mean, I think the most revealing evidence that was developed around Mark Meadows came from two sources in the congressional probe. It's from the trove of texts from Mark Meadows' phone that Adam Kinzinger described as the star witness, basically in absentia. And the second is the dramatic live and tape depositions of Cassidy Hutchinson. We'll go through all of it with you, Tim, but let me start with what to me sounded like knowledge of violence, knowledge of the specificity of the weapons that the insurrectionists were carrying. And as far as what was outward facing, not a real sense of action, not a real plan that was ever revealed through the congressional investigation. This is Cassidy Hutchinson on that.
What was Mark's reaction, Mr. Meadows' reaction to this list of weapons that people had in the crowd?
When Tony and I went in to talk to Mark that morning, Mark was sitting on his couch and on his phone, which was something typical. And I remember Tony just got right into it. I was like, sorry, I just want to let you know, and had informed him, like, this is how many people we have outside the mags right now. These are the weapons that we're known to have. It's possible he listed more weapons off that I just don't recall. And gave him a brief but and concise explanation, but also fairly thorough. And I remember distinctly Mark not looking up from his phone. And I remember Tony finishing his explanation and it taking a few seconds for Mark to say something, to the point where I almost said, Mark, did you hear him? And then Mark chimed in and was like, all right, anything else? Still looking down at his phone. And Tony looked at me and I looked at Tony, and Tony said, no, sir, do you have any questions? He's like, what are you hearing? And I looked at Tony and I was like, sir, he just told you about what was happening down at the rallies. And he was like, yeah, I know. And then he looked up and said, have you talked to the president? And Tony said, yes, sir, he's aware too. And he said, all right, good.
So this felt, in this presentation of evidence, like the sort of two bookends of both Trump's knowledge and Meadows' knowledge of the violence that was planned and the capacity of violence in the form of the specific types of weapons they were carrying. It is sort of bolstered by the radio traffic, which isn't from Capitol Police, it's from Presidential Personal Detail, which would only be tracking that if they plan to move the president. And then all of the evidence that the committee developed about the planned OTR and the difference between an OTR movement and a different kind of movement. Tell me how Meadows cracks the code on this evidence that was very much developed with what was available to the committee, but maybe not fully pierced without Meadows himself.
Yeah, so Meadows is the gatekeeper. He is the White House Chief of Staff. So Tony Ornato, who Cassidy Hutchinson referenced there, is another Deputy Chief of Staff. He works directly for Meadows. He's the person who liaisons with the Secret Service. He's actually a Secret Service agent who's detailed Ornato to the White House at the time. Meadows is the funnel through which information reaches the president. That's why Meadows' awareness is very, very close to the president's awareness. As Ms. Hutchinson said, he asks Tony Ornato, is the president aware? And Mr. Ornato says, yes. There was lots of information in the days leading up to January 6th about the prospect of weapons. We developed this really powerful vignette of the president himself on the night before, sort of opening the doors to the Oval Office and hearing the crowd that had gathered at Freedom Plaza the night before for another rally where Mike Flynn and Ali Alexander and a bunch of people are talking. And he says, these people are really angry. So the president is specifically aware from that testimony about this sort of rising sense of frustration and anger in the crowd. And then, Cole, we got all kinds of Teams messages, radio communication on the morning of January 6th that the Secret Service and other agencies gathered about people in the crowd with weapons, about weapons being stacked, flagpoles and shields and clubs being stacked outside of the magnetometers at the White House. So it was very obvious to anyone, again, Meadows is the gatekeeper, about the presence of very dangerous implements and weapons at the ellipse on January 6th. So if he is cooperative, if he is testifying, his awareness of all of that information about dangers, very specific danger presented by the crowd, and the president's awareness of that, really significant about the president's intent.